Hi friends, welcome back to my kitchen. This week I had a lot of fun recipes to share with you. Most of these meals are made with whole foods or at least from scratch, and they're all nourishing and comforting for the fall season. Some of them are my tried and true favorites, while others were brand new to me. I had such a good time making these recipes, and I hope this video gives you a little inspiration for some cozy fall meals to feed your family. We're getting started with breakfast for the week, and even though these are my usual egg bakes, we're adding a little twist. We're going to turn them into breakfast sandwiches. While those are baking in the oven, I'm getting started on the meat to go with them. I'm using 1 pound of lean ground pork and 1 pound of lean ground turkey to make my own breakfast sausage patties. For seasoning, I'll add salt, pepper, dried marjoram, dried sage, and a little bit of brown sugar for sweetness. I'll include all the spices in the description box. Instead of shaping individual patties, I'm spreading the mixture out onto a baking sheet, and let me tell you, this is the hack of the century for breakfast sandwiches. It was so much easier. I'll bake it at 400 degrees until the meat reaches 165 degrees internal temperature since we're using turkey. Here's what I'm talking about. This is how the sausage sheet pan turned out. I'll cut these into 24 small squares, and they're going to fit perfectly on top of my sandwiches. To turn these into sandwiches, I am using homemade English muffins. I'll mix the dough all together, and after it's done, I'll let it rise until it doubles in size, and then portion it out for the second rise. I did use yeast for this recipe, so it should only take about an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on your kitchen. Before shaping, I'm prepping my sheet pan with parchment paper and cornmeal. Since I doubled the recipe, I'll end up with 24 English muffins. That means I'll divide the dough in half, then in half again, and then each quarter into 6 smaller pieces. To shape each portion, I take the corners and fold them in on themselves and then pinch to create a seam. Then I'll roll seam side down on the counter to build tension. You'll continue doing this until all portions are shaped. English muffins can be a labor of love since they cook in batches on the pan, but I figured since I already had dough going, I might as well double it and freeze the extras for the next time we make breakfast sandwiches. After shaping, I'll let them rise for about 20 minutes on the counter. While those are rising and as it's approaching dinner time, I'm going to get started on some of tonight's meal. We're having burger tacos, and the first thing we need to make is guacamole. And let me tell you, once you make guacamole at home, store-bought just doesn't compare. For this recipe, I'm using 4 large avocados, 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, and then salt to taste, probably about half a teaspoon, and then juice from half a lime. I'll then use my potato masher to crush everything together, get all the flavors incorporated until it is smooth but still chunky. Then I'll add the veggies. I've got about a 1/4 cup of red onion and half a jalapeno. I love using my veggie chopper for this. It makes everything so quick and uniform. I also added about a 1/4 cup of cilantro, although somehow I missed filming that part. And then after tasting it, which I always recommend, I felt like it needed a touch more citrus. So I added a bit of lemon juice to balance out the lime, and at that point it turned out perfect. Since I'm not quite ready to serve this yet, I want to cover the guacamole tightly with cling wrap and then press that against the surface to prevent any type of browning. Then I'll also top it with tin foil before putting it in the refrigerator. After the muffins have risen, I'll cook them on a preheated pan covered for 9 minutes. Because I started these English muffins later in the day, the night ended up being a little chaotic. It was definitely not my most efficient kitchen plan because I was bouncing back and forth between finishing the English muffins and making dinner, and I had that double recipe, so there were so many to cook. So I would recommend either doing this on a totally different day or just doing this in the morning. While those cook, I'm making a quick pico de gallo for the burger tacos. It's always best to prep this early so that the flavors have time to come together. For the burger tacos, I'm using 1 pound of ground beef seasoned with about half a tablespoon of steak seasoning. I'll spread small portions of the beef mixture onto corn tortillas, and I was able to get about 5 tacos. We'll cook them meat side down on a hot pan for about 4 minutes per side. Near the end, I'll top each with cheese and then finish it with my homemade pico, guac, and some lettuce. These were so delicious, but a little time consuming. So next time I'd probably just cook the seasoned ground beef like normal taco meat rather than press them into the tortillas. It'd be just as flavorful and way quicker. After a long evening, all 24 English muffins were finally done, and just look at these beautiful nooks and crannies. They tasted amazing on breakfast sandwiches this week. I just popped one in the air fryer each morning with the egg and the sausage, and breakfast was ready in minutes. For dinner the next night, I made one of my go-to crockpot recipes since we were hosting a friend overnight. It's always a crowd pleaser and requires almost no hands-on time. I started by searing a 3-pound chuck roast that was seasoned with steak seasoning and thyme. I deglazed the pan with about half to 1 cup beef broth, scraping up all those flavorful bits, and poured that over the roast. That's all it takes. It cooks low and slow for 8 hours and turns out perfectly tender. I decided I wanted to make a little breakfast treat since my guest was staying overnight, so I was getting started on some pumpkin cinnamon rolls, and I will link the recipe in the description box because you'll just have to see how good these turned out. I use my bread machine for the dough, mostly because it makes things so easy and I'm kind of lazy. You can make this recipe the same day, but I was prepping mine the night before so that I didn't have to do as much in the morning when we woke up. While the dough was rising, I started on chia seed pudding for this week's snack. I mixed 2 cups of milk, a drizzle of maple syrup, and a splash of vanilla. Then I stirred in 1 cup of chia seeds, I quickly realized my bowl was way too small, so I transferred this to a larger measuring cup. After mixing well, I let it chill in the fridge for at least an hour or 2. It's delicious served with homemade yogurt and granola. This snack never lasts long in our house because my kids absolutely love it. When there were about 3 hours left on the Crockpot, I added some green beans so they could cook with the meat and get a nice flavor. I also started prepping my mashed potatoes. I love that this meal I can get all my veggies done ahead of time, the meat cooked itself, and by dinner, all that's left is mashing and plating. I didn't get a final video of how everything turned out, but you'll just have to take my word for it that this was so delicious. You gotta give this a try. Now that my cinnamon dough roll was doubled, I could put it on a floured surface and we'll roll it to a 12 by 18 rectangle. I spread the softened butter all over, then I'll sprinkle it with my cinnamon sugar mixture before rolling it up tightly. With my bench scraper, I cut it into 12 even pieces before placing them in a prepared dish. Since I made these ahead of time, I let them proof overnight in the fridge, and then the next morning I pulled them out about 90 minutes before baking to make sure they came to room temperature and to rise again. For the cream cheese frosting, I used reduced fat new chaffle, a splash of maple syrup, 2/3 cup powdered sugar, and a splash of milk. I blended it until it was smooth. These rolls were so delicious, the perfect cozy fall treat. You really can't go wrong with anything topped with cream cheese frosting. Later that evening, I started on dinner, which was steak bites and seasoned potatoes. I cubed about 4 pounds of sirloin steak and seasoned them with garlic salt, parsley, and black pepper, then massaged it until everything was well covered. I'm getting started on cutting up my potatoes, and my kids were just absolutely mesmerized by this. I didn't realize I was going to have such an audience for dinner prep tonight. For the potatoes, I cut them into 1/2-inch cubes and seasoned them with garlic salt, parsley, cumin, paprika, black pepper, and some olive oil. I air fried them for 20 minutes at 400 degrees while the steak cooked on the stovetop, which was about 3 minutes per side. To finish, I made a quick garlic butter sauce with 2 tablespoons of butter and a teaspoon of garlic, scraping the pan to get all the flavor before pouring it over the steak. This was a new recipe for me, but it turned out so good. Every bite was packed with flavor. For our last meal of the week, we had breakfast for dinner. Normally this would be a leftover night for me, but we ran out. So I made pumpkin waffles using my regular pancake base, but I added pumpkin puree and some warm fall spices as well. I doubled the recipe so I could freeze extras and then use those for breakfast later this week. Even though this week was full of cooking and plenty of dishes, it reminded me of how much joy I find in feeding my family well. Homemade food doesn't have to be complicated. It's really about slowing down, being present, and creating something nourishing for the people you love. Thank you for spending time with me in my kitchen today. If this video gave you some cozy fall meal ideas or a bit of motivation for your own week, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me again next time. Until then, I hope you have a warm, productive, and grace-filled week ahead.